Today you'll have the pleasure of listening to Larry Hecker, CBT's hygienic design and sanitation guru. I don't use that term lightly. Larry really does know hygienic design inside and out. On top of his sanitation expertise, he also has 32 years of experience in the belting industry. So without further ado, here's Larry.
Thank you, Callie. Again, my name's Larry Hecker. I'm your host today for today's webinar on hygienic design and some of the mistakes we see out in the field. Like Callie said, I've been around a long time, 24 years with CBT in the belting world, and a few years ago I was tasked to become our in-house hygienic design specialist. So I took some training down at the Commercial Food Institute in New Orleans. Also did some training with 3A, and combining that with my experience out in the field over the last 30 some years, I feel like I have some knowledge that hopefully I can share with you that makes your food plants, your equipment you're building, better from a hygienic design standpoint. So why worry about hygienic design? Why is this such a buzzword now that maybe 10 years ago you didn't hear much about it? Well, with the Food Safety Modernization Act of a few years ago, that kind of really steamrolled this whole hygienic design and the improvement in the plants. And the reason being is, without getting into details, kind of the burden of proof shifted from the government or the inspectors determining what's bad inside the food plant. It's now the food plant's responsibility for determining what is right and proving to the government they're doing things the right way. So really that shift of proof to the manufacturer is really the big deal. And basically you got to make sure that you document your steps, have proven steps to clean your equipment, that the end result is a hygienic, micro-free production area. Also, it's important that you document your swab tests. Make sure that areas are being swabbed all over the place so that any microbes that are growing are caught, and to prove to the USDA, the FDA, that what you're doing in your food plant is the proper way of doing things. So food safety, how good is good? Let's say a food plant is making 2 million portions a year. In this case, let's say it's muffins. They're making 200 million muffins a year. So if you're 99% food safe, which you hear a lot of people saying 99% good, that would still be 2 million bad muffins a year. So 99% good isn't good enough in the food world. And as you can see going down, you get to 99.99%, which I would say, wow, that's really good. But still, you're talking 20,000 muffins that are at risk for some sort of contamination. Again, not good enough. Really, if you get down to it, 99.9999% is what we're shooting for, which would be 200 a year. Again, we'd like to have zero, but realistically, 200 questionable products in a year that you're making 200 million, that's pretty darn good. And that's really what we're shooting for from a production standpoint. So before we go on, we'll ask a question here. What do you think the average cost of a recall is? And I'll give you a few seconds to answer before we go on with this. So if we go and what the actual cost is, $10 million in direct cost per recall, which is a lot of money. And if you're a smaller manufacturer, that's a whole lot of money. But beyond the actual dollar cost, the direct cost, it's the lost sales, it's the brand damage, the reputation that your brand will suffer into the future will probably dwarf this $10 million in direct costs. Again, our little meme here talks about Chipotle. if you type in Chipotle memes, there's hundreds of them still today over something that happened to Chipotle 5, 6, 7 years ago. And very few people know that Chipotle, since this outbreak they had, has put together a team of experts from around the globe, literally around the globe, to prevent anything like this happening in the future at Chipotle. Again, people don't know that Chipotle is probably the safest place to eat now because of the team of experts they've put together. But that reputation is still out in the marketplace. When we were sitting down discussing this webinar a month ago, one of my coworkers mentioned Jack in the Box and the problems Jack in the Box had. And we had to Google search it to realize that was 20 years ago. And yet it's still in people's head of getting sick while eating at Jack in the Box. So to avoid a recall, it's not only to avoid those direct costs of having to throw away product, ship product back, but the damage you've done to your brand can be long lasting, if not permanent. So what are we trying to get rid of? Well, microbes, salmonella, most common in eggs and in meat and grains, peanuts and tree nuts. Listeria, where you see that around uncooked meats and raw vegetables. E. coli, undercooked meats, raw meat, raw milk and juice, raw fruits and vegetables. Those are the big three. There are some other, but these are the big three that we're dealing with on a daily basis within our plants. But what else are we trying to get rid of? Food allergens, which are naturally occurring proteins in foods. Those are another thing that we are trying to get rid of from a hygienic design basis. And particularly in plants where you're running multiple products on the same line, that cross-contamination we need to make sure we're able to get rid of. If you're running a product with nuts and then running problem without nuts, we all know the proliferation of nut allergies in the world today. So we want to make sure we get rid of those any type of particle. As little as 5 parts per million of an allergen can trigger a response. So we're not talking about much. And, 30,000 Americans a year go to the emergency room and 200 die every year from food allergens. So, it's really important. And in your larger plants where you have dedicated lines for dedicated products, probably not as big of a concern, but if you're running multiple products on the same line, a real big concern. And also, not mentioned here is flavor carryover. I dealt with a customer a year or so ago, maybe it's 2 years now, that were running kind of a seasoned cracker on a line, and then like a non-seasoned cracker, like kind of a saltine or something on this same line. And their problem was when they would switch over from the seasoned cracker to the unseasoned cracker, they would get that flavor carryover. And it was taking a lot of time to clean, particularly this real long conveyor belt, in order to get all the flavorings off when they switched that line over. And I think basically what the end result was a steam cleaner, a dry steam cleaner that worked really well on cleaning that and getting all the residue off so that it didn't have that flavor carryover. So before we kind of get in some of the mistakes I've seen out in the field, I want to kind of review the 10 principles of hygienic design. Again, this will be in your resources. And also, if you Google search it, the 10 principles, these will come up. And I just kind of want to review these, kind of maybe give you some insight on some of these. And some of these we'll go in deeper on a further down the slideshow. And also talk about some of the products that are available out in the marketplace you might not be aware of that can solve some of these issues. So the number one principle, cleanable to a microbiological level. Just because you can't see anything doesn't mean it's clean. Microbes, viruses, things like that are not visible to the naked eye. So when you're putting together a piece of equipment, building a piece of equipment, evaluating a new piece of equipment, evaluating your existing equipment, you want to make sure it's cleanable to a microbiological level. There's not cracks, crevices, and things where microbes can grow and in turn contaminate your product. Made of compatible materials. What does this mean? We want to make sure that all the materials that your pieces of equipment are using are all food-safe materials approved by the governing agencies, so that if product comes in contact with them, you don't have to worry about some sort of contamination. Accessible to inspection, maintenance, and cleaning and sanitation. You want to make sure that you can look inside your equipment to see if there's anything nasty growing in there. There's a saying out in the hygienic sanitation world, if you can't see it, you can't clean it. And that is certainly true for all your production equipment. You want to make sure you can see in there. Machine nice and open. Again, it makes it easier for maintenance to get in there and do what they need to do. And also your sanitation crew. The more things are open, the more likely they're going to do a good job and the allotted time they have to get your factory to a clean level to where you can begin running food again. No liquid content. You don't want harborage areas on your food equipment. So things need to be rounded. Things need to be sloped. You don't want liquid building up somewhere, because liquid buildup is a perfect area for microbes to start growing. So you want to make sure your floors are well sloped, tapered properly into the drains so that water on the floor flows away, water on your conveyors flows away, water on your enclosures flow away. So you don't have any liquid sitting there for a period of time that, again, can be a place for microbes to grow. Hollow areas should be hermetically sealed. A lot of conveyors you see out in your food plants will have hollow tubing, stainless steel tubing. You want to make sure that's all sealed all the way around so that water can't get in there, because once moisture gets in there, then you're a harborage point for microbes and mildew and all kinds of nasty stuff to grow in there. So you want to make sure all your hollow areas are hermetically sealed. No niches. Again, cracks where you can't get your high-powered hot water cleaner in, or you can't get your brushes in there. Those little niches, hard to clean, so you want to avoid them. Sanitary operational performance. What this means is basically you want your equipment to be able to run without getting overly dirty, overly contaminated, so that you don't have unnecessary waste buildup underneath or in corners of this equipment that, again, can be a harborage point for microbes. So you want to make sure that when this is running, a conveyor is not throwing off product into a corner that'll build up and it eventually get within the product stream. Things like that is what we're talking about there. Hygienically designed of maintenance enclosures. You want to make sure the enclosures that your electronics are held in are also in a hygienically designed type of product. Over my shoulder here, you can notice the slope top. That's really good, again, for the liquid holding. And you want to make sure that the enclosures can handle your wash down procedures. You want to make sure your equipment is hygienically compatible with other systems. So if you're dropping something in line, in the production line, you want to make sure it's compatible in there so that it doesn't cause a problem with the product flow to, again, build up waste where microbes and other things can grow. And finally, you want to validate a cleaning and sanitizing protocol. If you're buying new equipment, you want to make sure to reach out to your OEM and have them provide you the proper procedures on cleaning that equipment. Do that up front before you buy it in the design stage, making sure your OEM knows that with the equipment, they need to provide a way of cleaning that equipment. What it will force your manufacturer and your OEMs to do is maybe put a little more thought into how is this machine going to be taken apart to clean? How's this machine going to be to clean? We've got to come up with a cleaning procedure so the customer can clean this. So again, all those cleaning procedures need to be validated so at the end of a cleaning cycle, they're swabbed and everything comes back negative. And we want to make sure that's repeatable, that every time it's cleaned, it comes up with the results that you're looking for. So with that out of the way, we'll kind of go to 9 of the hygienic design mistakes to avoid. And again, from my time calling on food plants the last 30 years, I've seen a lot of stuff. I've been in a lot of food plants where I would come out of there saying, I never eat anything that was made in this plant. But I've also come out of way more plants where I've said, wow, they do a really good job on keeping their production area clean, and you can just tell that the food coming out of there is safe. But again, we'll highlight some of the stuff I've seen that I don't really like and hopefully offer you some solutions to fix that kind of thing if you see something similar in your own plant to what you're seeing on the screen. So the first thing I see is the facility doesn't really match the method. Now, generally, there's 2 ways people clean their plant, either dry clean or wet clean. And we want to make sure if it's a plant that you're going to dry clean, that it's a facility that can be dry clean. And vice versa, if it's a facility that needs to be wet clean, the facility can handle that. The big thing is floor drains. I've heard of customers and know of customers that have bought a new old building because they got a real good deal on it, and they were going to expand production into that building. Well, they were planning on washing down their equipment, and they get in this new building, realize it was a former warehouse, and there's no floor drains. Well, you can't wash down if there's nowhere for the water to go. And really, when you start looking into how much it's going to cost to pull up the floor and lay floor drain, suddenly that deal you got on the building isn't quite a deal. Again, kind of the rule of thumb is drains need to be every 20 square feet. So if you have a warehouse and you do on a grid basis, 20 feet down, 20 feet across, there should be floor drains in all the wash down areas for wet clean. So you want to make sure the facility can handle that. Again, your walls, if you're washing down, you want the insulated walls with a wipe down on the outside, again, so your sanitation crew can clean your walls also. I had a vendor show me just the other day a real neat product, and again, just the other day, so I didn't have time to get it in the presentation, but there are now kind of film coatings for walls that are not only antimicrobial, but they actually kill the microbes and viruses that are on that surface. And again, it goes over, instead of an antimicrobial paint that you have to redo every couple of years, it's actually a coating that has a silver in it that kills on contact. So it's a wonderfully new product that you might want to do some research on. But again, on your facility, Your walls need to be wash downable. Your floor drains, you need to have slope floors. And again, when we're talking about floor drains, one of the neat things that's now out here is this antimicrobial lining. Typically for sanitation, UV lighting has been used. Well, you can't have UV lighting around people. So now there's new lighting that's available that's safe for humans, but again, kills viruses. And we'll go to a video here in a second where one of my electrical specialists, Jason, will not only review that for you, because he knows way more about it than I do, but he'll also review some of the other electrical products that are available that will help you get your plant a little more hygienically designed. So with that, I'm going to pass this over to Jason.
Thanks, Larry. CBT has many electrical solutions designed for hygienic applications. These include the Hoffman High Shed. Now, we think of Hoffman for a lot of different Thanks, Larry. CBT has many electrical solutions designed for hygienic applications. These include the Hoffman High Shed. Now, we think of Hoffman for a lot of different hygienic applications. They have a lot of slope top enclosures, but the High Shed is their most advanced product yet. It has an IP69K enclosure that's NEMA 4X rated, but it's also NSF rated. There's a slope top, and they've gotten rid of the catch points so that there aren't as many places that things could decide to grow in. It has a watertight seal, and this watertight seal is done by an FDA grade gasket. That gasket's around the door and around the screws, and that gasket's even replaceable as well. A really cool thing about this is that there's no extra steps required for washdown. That means you have a product that can withstand CIP and high pressure washdown environments. Hubble Wiring Devices has the Circuit Lock Disconnect series, and one of those products has a sloped top stainless steel design. It's designed to not have any catch points. It is an excellent option for motor disconnects and is available in up to 600 volts, 100 amps, and 3 poles. Hubble Wiring Devices has a line of watertight devices that they've redesigned to eliminate catch points. These devices are IP69K rated, NEMA 4X, and are also NSF certified. Patterson Fan has a standout in the arena of fans. They have a stainless steel line. They actually have a couple of stainless steel lines of fans. There's a high velocity fan that's available from 14 inches all the way up to 30 inches, and they have cage fans available from 24 inches to 30 inches. These fans are designed not only to be stainless steel and washdown capable, but the motors are washdown rated as well. So you can install a fan in an area and you don't have to do any movement or covering of that fan to wash down for sanitary conditions. Moving on to some lighting products that we have designed for sanitary. Hubble has the traditional style enclosed and gasketed fixture that you might expect, the LXEW and LXEM. Now these look a lot like the fluorescent fixtures of the past, but there's LED technology inside, giving it a long lifespan, but they're also available up to 38,000 lumens, which makes it an easy replacement for any metal halide or fluorescent solution that you might find out on the plant floor. These fixtures are 100% glass-free. These fixtures are IP67 rated, and they are UL sanitation certified to NSF standards. Something that's less traditional is Hubble's new SpectraClean 405 technology. They're using 405 nanometer light to deactivate pathogens such as food poisoning, Salmonella, E. coli, and Listeria. They're able to take this technology and package it with a white light product in the same fixture, the same NSF rated fixture, so that they can use it either in dedicated mode over problem areas such as floor drains, or they can have it in a mode that switches back and forth between that 405 technology and the white light. Why that would be important is if you have an area where people are occupying it, that product can be in a white light mode, so people aren't working in a weird, hard to work in light. But when they vacate the space, the lighting controls take over and switch it over to this light that disinfects the area. What's really nice about this technology is that it's not UV, it's near UV. So that means it's human safe and it's not going to degrade any plastics that's exposed to the light. If you have any questions about any of these products, please feel free to reach out to your CBT account manager or electrical supply specialist. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Moving on to one of the other things I see all the time, too many flat surfaces. On the plant, what we talked about on the 10 principles, no harborage points for water to stand. Again, I see it out in the plants all the time. Enclosures, flat top enclosures. We want to change this over to slope top enclosures. A lot of times your sanitation crew will have to bag all the enclosures before they go and spray and do their business. Well, if you got a flat top enclosure, it's a perfect time to change that out to a slope top. And while you're at it, upgrade to an IP69K rated enclosure, where then your sanitation crew doesn't need to bag that up before they spray it down. Square framework. A lot of conveyors are built with the square tubing to where the flat on the tubing up top. What you want to do is change that over to so it's sitting at a diamond. So you have the roof, water runs off. Gearboxes, if you see it from this picture, this is a picture of an IP69K rated gearbox. Great, right? You can spray it down. You don't have to worry about water ingress, anything. But the problem with this, it's got the flat on the top. Again, water will sit there after your sanitation crew is gone. Over my right shoulder, you can see this is an updated gearbox. It's rounded all around. Many manufacturers now do that so that water won't sit on top. There's nowhere for the water to sit up on top. And like Jason said, lighting. New lighting fixtures are out there that are sloped so that any spray that gets up there will drip off the light. This picture over here, it's kind of hard to see. Again, Callie showed you how to expand the picture, but in this washdown area, you've got a flat top enclosure there. Again, if that's slope top, you're much better off. We'll talk about some of the other stuff I see wrong on this photo in the future. But again, just because something's new doesn't mean it's right. Again, we'll talk about it a little bit, but when you're getting new equipment in, you got to make sure that they're building it to the latest, greatest technology that's available to them and to you. So the other thing I see all the time, microbial sandwiches. Not the sandwiches you eat, but sandwiches that harbor microbes and other things you don't want it to harbor. What do I mean by sandwiches? Where you have two flats that are put together but not hermetically sealed. In this picture, you can see this is probably a leg for a conveyor where it's just tack welded at the top and bottom. Again, behind that is a harborage point. Sanitation can spray, spray, and spray, but that will never get totally clean. Really, the big one I see are flange bearings on your conveyors where you have bearings holding on to either the head shaft or the tail shaft. And these are 4-bolt flange bearings. Again, you've got a flat surface of the bearing against the flat surface of the framework of your conveyor. Can't get behind there. One of the new products out in the field that are really nice are these flange bearings that have the standoffs built in. Typically up to this point, when people want to use flange bearings, but we're aware of that sandwich and trying to avoid that, they would build most of the time a stainless steel spacer, run a longer bolt through it, and again to get that bearing offset away from the framework. Now you don't have to build those expensive spacers. It's built into the frame of the the bearing or that bearing housing. The dimensions on these, your bolt centers are the same. So if you want to convert your existing equipment, they're going to bolt into the same holes. What you will have to look at is that length through bore, along with the offset, is a little bit longer than what your standard flat flange bearing is. So there might be some equipment where you'll have to change the shafts out to a little bit longer shaft so that it'll hold in the bearing. But again, very important there to get that sandwich away from or eliminate that sandwich. Other things I see, casters bolted at the bottom. Again, your top of your caster sits on a flat thing, not hermetically sealed. Again, that's a harborage point to where it can build up in there, eventually out on the floor. People track it from one room to the other, and it can be a mess that it really doesn't have to be. Scraper blades. Being a conveyor guy, I'm dealing with scraper blades. Well, a lot of people to build a scraper blade will take 2 pieces of stainless steel, put a piece of plastic in the middle, UHMW or something like that, and bolt it together. Well, not hermetically sealed. You got flat surface. Again, from a cleaning standpoint, the only way to get that clean is to totally disassemble that scraper blade. Again, there are now commercially available scrapers that eliminate that, has built-in screens, springs, pop-off blade, so that your sanitation crew, without any tools, can disassemble the scraper blades and do their cleaning, put it all back together, and you don't have to worry about that microbial sandwich. So I've kind of talked a couple times, I've mentioned IP69K rating. And most of you are probably familiar, some of you aren't, and maybe you're not familiar with how the numbering system goes. And again, the IP rating, the IP stands for ingress protection. So how hard is it for something to get into something else? So that first number is a number for your solids. So that number, the higher the number, the smaller size of solid that will get into that piece of equipment or that component. The second number is water protection. And again, same thing, the higher the number, the better it is for water or chemical ingress. The latest, the most current is 69K. So again, if you're putting in new equipment, you want to make sure or try to get IP69K versions of whatever that is, whether that's a motor, a gearbox, enclosure, screens. You can see screens behind me. Again, available in an IP69 rating. That's what you want to do in order to ensure that your sanitation crew can do their job without having to risk the ruin equipment. So a lot of things you'll see are 55, 59K or 59K. You really want to look for that 69K, and kind of how that 69K is determined now is, let's say it's a gearbox. It sits on a pedestal, and high temperature water is sprayed on it from multiple angles for, I believe it's 3 minutes. And after the test, then it's taken apart. And if any water has gotten in during the test, it has failed the rating. So that's kind of how the 69K has been developed. Certainly look for it when you're shopping for new components, or if you're buying a new piece of equipment, make sure your OEM is using IP69K rated components. So other things I see, painted components and other improper materials. When we talk about IP69 rated gearboxes, none of them are going to be painted. And I see out in the field, it's particularly in older plants, you see a white epoxy-coated motor gearbox combination. And we still have customers call in asking for painted motors. And usually when we kind of say, hey, do you want to go to a switch to a stainless? They'll say, no. That's too expensive. I just want to stick with this. It doesn't really matter. Well, twofold. The problem with a painted component is that paint flakes. And what happens is paint flakes, inspector comes in, sees that gearbox, let's say, and it's missing paint. Their first question is going to be, where'd that paint go? And your answer is going to be, I don't know, because you're hoping it flaked off on the floor and it went down into the drain, but you don't know that for sure. It could have flaked off onto your product. So again, get away from painted motors and gearboxes. They're generally not IP69K rated. Switch it over to a rounded IP69K stainless version of it. You don't have to worry about flaking paint, and it's going to have a better water ingress protection to it, so it's going to last longer. So maybe that painted gearbox last you 3 years. Well, the motor, the stainless steel motor one might last 6, might last 10. So even if it's 30% more expensive, it's going to be less cost over time. So be sure to look for that. Also, in a lot of older equipment, I still see bronze bushings, oil-locked bronze bushings. And basically, those bronze bushings have a lot of open area inside of them where the oil is sitting. On the older equipment, they've used these bronze bushings for the slow-turning shafts. Well, because they have perforations and all in them to hold oil, it also will hold microbes. So you want to make sure all your bearings are rolling element bearings and not the bronze bushings or the composite plastic type bearings that are wash down rated. Aluminum. Now, not all aluminum is bad. You can use aluminum if it's coated properly and anodized. But again, over time, that coating will wear off, and then the aluminum underneath would corrode. So really what I would like to see up front, if you're doing a belt drive, instead of using aluminum pulleys, make sure you switch over to stainless steel. Again, more durable. You don't have to worry about it corroding in the future. And I was for this webinar, I was out searching for different pictures and all, and came across an OEM website, and they were touting this conveyor on the screen. This is a new conveyor, and brand new conveyor, and yet we've got a painted gearbox here, painted motor gearbox combo. Certainly would not want to see this on a new piece of equipment. Again, pay for the difference up front, or insist that your manufacturer uses something stainless up front. Don't let your OEM try to do this to cut cost. Sometimes you get multiple bids. There's a reason why the lowest bid's the lowest bid. And probably some of it is they've cheapened down the components in order to make their quote to you the least expensive. So another thing I see is improper cable arrangement. If you see on this picture in the middle here, you'll see a bunch of cables that run through eyes on your framework. Again, your sanitation crew has no chance on getting it clean in between those. And really, after they spray down, water will remain in there, microbes will grow. You certainly don't want to do that. On the right, you can kind of see some ways around this, where they have spacers on the wires. Again, keeps the wires apart so that your sanitation crew can clean all around those. Really, the best solution to that is your stainless steel conduit. And again, they do have now connectors, IP69K rated connectors, so you don't have to worry about water getting in there. Again, nice and rounded instead of flat, so water doesn't harbor on that. And that's really the best way to go. But if you do have individual wires, make sure they're spread apart so your sanitation crew can get in there. Improper machine modification or repair. We all know what happens in manufacturing. Fork trucks go around and they hit equipment. It's just something that happens. A lot of time when that framework gets bent, if you're talking about hollow tube conveyors, when you straighten it back out, there's cracks in that. You want to make sure you go the full thing, weld and hermetically sealed any cracks you might have on that framework due to damage. Again, broken welds, you want to make sure you go back in and have your maintenance crew re-weld those properly. Openings in tubing. A lot of times people will repurpose equipment. You know, a line will come, will be decommissioned. You'll save certain components. Oh, we'll use that for something else that's coming in later. Well, on the old equipment, there might be a sensor or something that was screwed into your hollow tubing. And on a new piece of equipment, you don't need that sensor, so they take it out. And then they don't go back and hermetically seal that opening in that tubing. Again, moisture will get in, microbes will grow. You risk that coming out and contaminating your product. So anytime you're repurposing equipment, make sure everything you take off, any holes, seal those up, any broken welds, fix those. Again, if you're modifying equipment, make sure you're doing it in a hygienically designed, proper way of doing it. So we're going to take another quiz. What material is not recommended for food equipment? And again, if we just ask one of your click on one of those and we'll give you a second here. Let's see, answers. I'm not seeing answers on my end. But the answer, again, aluminum, you want to avoid that. Because over time, aluminum will corrode. So switch it to stainless steel or a lot of plastic, acetyl plastic, UHMW, things like that, that make things a lot more cleanable for a lot longer period of time. So the next thing I see, lack of visibility. As I kind of talked to you earlier, if you can't clean, you can't clean what you can't see. So you want to make sure your equipment's nice and open. And I'll kind of bring this point home by these two pictures. Two conveyors doing primarily the same thing, taking product for below, carrying up, dumping it on a hopper up top. So the conveyor on the left is an older piece of equipment. It is, as you can see, all stainless steel, but it's enclosed on the side. You can't see the bottom of the belt. This is a fabric-based belt with welded on sidewall and cleats. And again, the hopper that's dumping onto the belt, it's all enclosed. And if you look at the backside, the bottom of the belt is about 3 inches off the ground. Again, in the hygienic design world, minimum gap below the bottom of your conveyor and the floor needs to be 12 inches. It needs to be 12-inch high. And this one, again, is about 2 or 3 inches from the bottom of the belt to the floor. Again, your sanitation crew is not going to be able to get underneath that and clean that properly. You're not going to be able to get in and really clean inside this framework. Again, you've got a fabric belt. We'll talk about that a little later, why you kind of want to try to get away from fabric at all possible. This conveyor on the right, much newer design. If you can look at this, the framework is all open. The only places where you've even got anything on the side is at your transition points on the Z. And again, where this is at, you can still see behind it. So it's enclosed all the way. Again, 12 inches off the ground. You've got UHMW tail pulleys here. You've got, it's all stainless up top. Again, it's open. You can see the back side of the belt all the way around. See the front side of the belt all the way around. There's no real hang-up places for product to hang up. So again, this type of conveyor 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago started coming into favor. Before then, everything you saw was like this on the left. Again, that was a nice design 30 years ago. Today, not so. So if you're getting a new piece of equipment, gun for something on the right here. Again, this belt is a homogeneous belt. There's no fabric in it. Very cleanable to a microbial level. Over-engineered equipment. I see a lot of equipment out there that I'll get called in to look at, and they're having problems tracking the belt or having problems with this or that on it. And when I look at it, the first thing I think is, man, there's so much going on in this conveyor that doesn't need to be here. Again, when you're designing a piece of equipment, if you're an OEM designing it for your food customer, think about what's the fewest amount of components that I can put on this thing and make it do what my customer needs it to do. The fewer parts you have, number one, it's going to be easier to build, quicker to build, easier for your customer to clean, and there's less things to go wrong on it. So if you look at this conveyor, again, I pulled it off of a website. There's a whole lot going on here that doesn't need to be going on here. Again, we've got a stainless steel motor up here, which is nice, but I've got square tubing down here. I've got some extra framework. I've got take-ups here that are a lot of components. Again, this conveyor is just conveying component or product from A to B, not rocket science. So what I would do here is change this out. This looks to be a fabric belt, and hence the tensioners. Change it out to either a modular belt if you're dealing with packaged product, or a blue homogeneous belt if you're dealing with raw product or free form product, direct contact. You can get rid of the take-ups and make it a whole lot simpler design so that your customer will have a lot easier time cleaning it. Again, this picture at the bottom, and this isn't a food application, but the design that we did on it is relevant for food equipment. This is a conveyor in a local water park, and before this conveyor, they had a conveyor that had a fabric belt on it, and it had take-ups, and the bottom of this conveyor where the take-ups were and the take-up bearings and the pulley is submerged 365 days out of the year because it's an indoor water park. Well, over time, the take-ups would rust. The bearings would have to be replaced every 6 months. The belt had to be changed. I think we would get 18 months or so out of the belt before that would have to be changed. And they came to us and said, can you guys design something to replace this, that we don't have all these problems? And this conveyor is actually a conveyor that has no bearings on it. It has a motorized pulley on it. This is a modular belt, and it has been running for, I think, 2.5 years now, and they have spent 0 minutes and 0 seconds on preventative maintenance. Because there's no bearings, they haven't had to replace any bearings. The belt is still the original belt 2 years later. They haven't had to retension the belt because a modular belt runs loose. The motorized pulley is totally sealed. Keeps working every day. Again, they don't have to worry about that. There's no bearings to go out on it. They bought a spare drive pulley and spare sprockets that they have set up in a component. If and when this motor goes out in the future, they can unbolt 2 brackets, pull it out, put the new one in, get up and running in probably 20 minutes, and then have that old motorized pulley rebuilt and remanufactured to put back on their shelf as a spare. But again, this type of equipment can be made for a food application where you have no bearings to worry about cleaning, no harborage points, very simple to design, no take-ups. And again, if you're moving product from A to B, you can get real simple on your conveyor design. So getting to the last one, improper belt selection. You see, we want to avoid fabric belts wherever possible in food plants. And you can see on these pictures on the right, fabric belts can delaminate. If you punch holes in it for drainage, you've got exposed fabric on the inside. And what happens is moisture gets in, it wicks through the fabric, becomes a harbor point. And, typically what we've done in the belt world, if we have to use a fabric belt due to the design of the equipment, we'll do capped edges so all the fabric is sealed all the way around. That works great until you have tracking problems and an edge gets worn. And again, fabric gets exposed. You have to replace the belt. Solutions to that. If you're dealing with real small pulleys, there are now manufacturers out there that make kind of these elastic belts that have no fabric in them. That you can replace those fabric belts on things like scales or metal detectors that have real small pulleys on the end. If you're looking at new equipment, I would make sure it's coming in with a fabric-free belt on it. If you've got current equipment that has fabric belt on it, get with one of your CBT specialists or your belting specialists and see what we've got that we can replace that with. Again, your sanitation crew will really love you if you get rid of the fabric. What's the replacement for that? Like I talked about earlier, the homogeneous belts. Volta came out, and this goes back 30 years, with a flat belt, again, no fabric in it. Back then, the problem was it was stretch and stretch and stretch, and then you'd have to shorten them or replace them. And then a few years later, another company came up with an idea of putting teeth on the backside of a homogeneous belt, run it like a modular belt, run it loose so that you don't have to worry about stretch. And again, no fabric in it, and it makes it a lot cleanable. And again, since then, Volta came out with a Super Drive, which is a narrower tooth. Interlocks has a Thermo Drive, which is a tooth all the way across. Both products are great. Both products have their benefits compared to the others. If I'm in a wet cleaning plant, both versions are great. If you're planning on dry cleaning, if you're in a bakery and you're going to scrape and dry clean your belt, I would use the Super Dry with the narrower tooth because there's less teeth to clean and makes it easier. When I was in training, one of the exercises we did was dry clean a belt, and it was a Thermo Dry belt, so it had teeth all the way across. And to clean those teeth all the way across via scraper and all, really hard to do. So use the Super Drive if you can on a dry clean application. So before we get to Q&A, I kind of were curious about what is your biggest food safety concern? So if you could answer that, it might not be everything. You might have another answer here, but out of the ones listed here, what's kind of your biggest safety concern? Again, I'm not seeing answers on my end, but you have foreign material risk. We want to make sure that your equipment doesn't contribute to that. There are X-ray detectable materials out there, metal detectable plastics out there. So really, to catch it downstream, you want to make sure that the components you're using upstream are detectable in your metal detectors. Microbial APRAC, we've talked about making sure things are hygienically designed. Inspections, again, we get back to can't clean what you can't see. Want to make sure that all your food equipment is easily inspected. So now we're at the point here. Any questions? Feel free to type them in, and we'll answer them. So let's see what we've got here. I saw a question earlier about aluminum, and some cooking utensils are out of aluminum. Yes, they are, because it's cheap and light. But again, if you're shopping for, go with the stainless steel over the aluminum. Again, that aluminum is anodized, treated to avoid contamination. Over time, that coating will wear off, and then your cooking ware will start corroding and all. So again, that's why they do that, because of the cost of aluminum is cheaper, and it's lighter, easier to work around the kitchen. But again, I would go with the stainless on that. Let's see if I've got any other questions. Okay. What would you say is the most important aspect of food safety? Obviously, it's cleanable to a microbial level. That's the most important thing with your equipment. You want to make sure you can get the microbes out when you do your sanitation, so that you lower your risk of contaminating your food product and having a costly recall. What are some of the methods of preventing food contamination? Again, making sure your plant is hygienically designed as possible. If I have a design risk, what should my next step to mitigate it is? That reminds me of something I haven't said. If you go out on the web, and I think we have it tagged to our resources for this, there are a couple checklists that the American Meat Institute has provided, and 3A has one also. It's a design checklist for equipment. And if you're going to buy new equipment, or if you want to evaluate your current equipment, print out one of these design checklists. And what it will allow you to do is evaluate your equipment and determine what parts of that equipment are at risk. So a lot of times I'll see where your quality department will have their swab results, and the same equipment in the same area gets dinged over and over and over again. That's the kind of thing that you want to look at. Work with your quality control group, your sanitation group on where are their problems, where they're having their negatives, or I guess your positive swabs coming up. Look at that part of the equipment and see, can we redesign this to make this easier for everyone involved? And again, that's where you get your CBT account manager, get myself involved, and maybe there's new equipment or new components out there that are an upgrade to what you currently have that can solve that problem. Don't just assume we've always had that problem and you're always going to have that problem. Get out of that mindset and think, how can I improve that? So let's see if there's any others. I don't see any other questions. We're at an hour. We're out of time. Again, feel free to email me. My contact information are on here. Reach out to your CBT account manager if you see anything. If you've enjoyed this, give us some feedback. If other people at your company can use this webinar, again, on our website in the near future will be this copy so they can watch it at their convenience. And again, if they watch and have questions, have them reach out to me via an email. I'd be happy to get back to you. If you want to talk to me one-on-one, my calendar is available online here that you can just pop in to a time in my calendar, and I'll reach out to you, and we'll set up a time, either a Teams meeting or a phone call, and we'll talk for 15, 20 minutes and kind of pick your brain on what concerns you have. And if I need to come out to your plant, let me know, and I can do that too. So again, thank you so much for your time today. Everyone here at CBT really appreciates it. And just just know that we're here to help, and thank you very much.